Colonial influences. Where did America get its ideas about government? During the Enlightenment period, the main idea of the Enlightenment was the importance of learning and reasoning. This period occurred from 1650 throughout the 1800s. Important ideas included separation of powers, natural law, and the social contract. John Locke is a very important philosopher that we'll be talking about. You could remember him as John Lockett, put it in your pocket. He believed in every person had the right to natural law and natural rights. He believed in the concept of life, liberty, and property. Again, he believed in natural rights, which are life, liberty, and property. If a government doesn't protect natural rights, the people have the right to overthrow it. That's what he believed in. So again, if a government doesn't protect natural rights, the people have the right to overthrow it. He also influenced Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. That's what DOI stands for. And we'll be getting into the Declaration of Independence, and you're going to see a lot of that came from John Locke's ideas. The next person we're going to be talking about is Baron de Montesquieu. We will refer to him as Montesquieu. It rhymes with barbecue. That's how you can remember him. He believed in the concept of separation of powers and checks and balances to be included in government. We have 3 branches of government so that each branch has its own responsibility, and we use checks and balances, which has nothing to do with balancing a checkbook. Checks and balances is important because it prevents one branch from becoming too powerful. So again, he believed in the theories of separation of powers and checks and balances. Okay, so separation of powers and checks and balances. He influenced James Madison and the other framers of the US Constitution. You'll see these theories in there. So social contract, it's not an actual contract that you have to sign. It's a theory that Locke and Montesquieu believed in. And basically, a social contract is created when a society agrees on the relationship between the people and the government. Okay, so it is a relationship between the people and the government. Okay, so the Magna Carta, you could remember the Magna Carta as the Starta. It is the starting document that we talk about. It occurred in 1215, and then we'll see the later documents that follow it. But this is the first document that we're going to talk about that actually started to limit the power of the king. This document helped English nobles. At the time, the king had way, way, way too much power. Remember, we talked about earlier, would you want somebody to be above you? Well, in this case, the king, he would make whatever laws he wanted, and then he himself would not follow him, but expected everybody else to. So at this time, the English nobles, this didn't affect everybody, only the English nobles. It was known as the Great Charter, and it limited the power of the King of England. So remember, it limited the power of the King of England. They forced him to agree to this document because they were tired of all these crazy rules. And we're going to go over this document, and you're going to see the crazy laws that he wanted his people to follow. So the big ideas that we're going to talk about: limited government and rule of law. Okay, that's a lot of that is in the Magna Carta. Also, due process and trial by jury. I'm going to show you some of the parts in here that you could see that reflect these ideas. So again, limited the power of the king of England, limited government, rule of law, due process, and trial by jury. Okay, so the Mayflower Compact occurred in 1620. It was written by the colonists, and it's an example of something that we just talked about. So I'm going to see if anybody can figure that out. So this is an agreement among individuals that created a government. It provided order. At the time, it was Massachusetts where they came. Nobody was there except the Native Americans, so they knew that they needed a government. So this was an agreement among individuals that created a government which provided order. It was the first written set of government in the American colonies. So does anybody know what this is an example of? Some of the big ideas are self-government and rule of law. And it is an example of a social contract. So self-government, rule of law, social contract. Okay, so the English Bill of Rights, this is another big document that we're going to be talking about. It occurred in 1689, and this happened once again in England. This expanded the powers of English Parliament and the rights of the people. Okay, so the rights of the people. It again even further limited the rights of the king. Okay, some of these rights will look familiar when we look at the U.S. Constitution because we got this from their English Bill of Rights. So in their English Bill of Rights, it included the right to bear arms and the right to petition the king. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys this document so you see what I mean. So some of the big ideas are limited government rights, due process, and rule of law. This is also a social contract. Okay, also another example of a social contract. All right, Common Sense was written in 1776, and this was a pamphlet to convince the American colonists to support independence. So he's convincing people, hey, hello, the king's taking advantage of us. You know, we don't have a lot of the same rights that the British have, and we're supposedly British colonists or British subjects. That's not fair. So this is the document of duh. Okay. It was like, duh, people, come on, we need to become independent. So this was written by T. Paine, Thomas Paine, and it was around the colonies in 1776, literally, during the year of independence. At the time, it was anonymous because you did not want to be known that you were going against the king. That was treason. So it was not known that Thomas Paine wrote it right away. Okay, so some of the big ideas are self-government. There are rights that are in here as well, and rule of law. Okay, so check for understanding. What were the causes and effects of these documents? Why did these documents come about, and what were the effects of them? Here's vocabulary that you guys are going to need to know.